Sometimes on these Bodhisattva Breakfast Corner talks, I bring up questions that people have emailed me or difficulties that people have that they've asked about. So I just recently got an email. As it happens, it's from somebody who's in Germany, but the situation he's describing is also happening in the US, okay? And it's the same kind of attitude of people in the US. So I would just like to read this, because I really appreciate his honesty in sharing this ugly side, you know, because lots of times when we have a lot of fear and anger and suspicion and prejudice, we like to pretend we don't have it, and then of course it's still there and affects us, but he sees it as a problem, and so I really admire the fact that he's discussing it. Okay, so he said, you know, I've been a Buddhist for 15 years and I'm also leading a small Buddhist group here. But he's living in an area of Berlin where about 90% of the people are Muslim. And so he said, I find my mind is often very uncomfortable with this, because I know when they see German girls with short dresses, they say these girls are bitches, and so on. And they build a lot of mosques here where they pray against the people who don't believe in Allah. And so therefore, he said, I bought a Quran, because thinking that if I read something of what their beliefs are, then, you know, my fears will go away. But to the opposite, I found passages in the Quran that speak of violence and so on. And so now my mind is really stirred up about the whole thing. And he said, yesterday I heard in the news that the Taliban killed some doctors who went to Afghanistan to help blind people. So this happened just a couple of days ago. And some workers from a Christian group who were, one man had lived there for, I don't know, many decades, and helping people who were blind, and there was a woman who was a doctor. Anyway, they were ambushed, and I think 10 people killed, or 4 people? 10 were killed, so it was really ugly, unfortunate thing. So he said, you know, that this makes me angry, and sometimes I feel that hate is arising. And I know from the Abhidharma that hate comes from fear, but what can I do? And I'm very afraid that in 20 years the freedom of speech and the freedom to practice our religion will die, because the Muslims are having 4 to 8 children and the Germans are having 1.3 children. And now all the young German kids are starting to speak like the Turkish boys, and you know, they want to kind of act like them. And they think it's kind of cool and fun to do that. And so instead of the Turks being integrated with the Germans are being integrated with the Turks. So then he went on and he said, someone told me if we have tolerance for their intolerance, then intolerance will be the winner. But if we are intolerant against their intolerance, then tolerance will be the winner. But to be intolerant is normally not my way, because I want to go the way of the Buddha. But sometimes I find this hard. And he was reading in Lama Zopa's book, and that Rinpoche said that your ego is more dangerous than Osama bin Laden. And that helped me for a while. But when I see all the women with covered heads, then I can't remember this. But for sometimes when I see the women, you know, wearing veils and so on, I try and think that they're Vajrayogini, and that Vajrayogini is checking if I'm practicing patience. And that helped me for a short time, but after a while that didn't help either. So I try to overcome my bad feelings against the Muslims, and I know this is the job I have to do in this life. So please, can you give me some methods to release me from this suffering of being angry with them? I think this is my biggest hindrance on the path to bodhicitta. intense letter, isn't it? Yeah. And that's why I said I was very appreciative with how honest he was about those kinds of thoughts, because so often when we have those kinds of thoughts, we don't want to admit them to anybody. And so they, at least not if we're good Buddhists, you know. We like to be good Buddhists. You know, but inside that stuff could be going on. And unless we really admit that we're thinking like that, then there's very little to be able to do about it. So I think we might talk about this subject for a few days. There's a lot to say about it.